This is Bruce Borkovich. I'm here with my friend Chris Long. And Chris, probably a lot of people don't know you around here. You're a little newer to the area. Tell everyone who you are.
Well, I'm a software engineer. I moved here 7 years ago from the other side of the state. I had a job in Grand Rapids, and I needed to be within an hour, and this was the furthest place I could go, right there on the river in Paris, and that's why I moved up here to fly fish and enjoy the weekends and things like that. Why did you move up here?
You know, my last job happened here. I started my life out as a teacher and a coach up in Everett. Good morning to the Everett people. And then I was able to become a Michigan conservation officer, which was my dream. And I did that for a career in 2006. I retired on a Friday, and the following Monday I went to work for the Bayonet Drug Team. It was a state police narcotics team. I was there for 7 years. I ended up being the assistant team leader on the drug team. And then I went from kicking doors down and pointing guns at people to the kind, gentler atmosphere of Ferris State University as the police chief. And so when that job opened up, you know, my wife and I were looking for that, our final resting place, if you will, because we're a little older now. And we knew the community. I had worked some in this community. It's a small town, liked the community, loved the resources, loved the county and the beauty and the agriculture. And so we bought a farm, and this is where we are happily ever after. So you're on the river, you said?
Yes, right there in Paris. Right there in the on the river off of Hoover, and
so you can wade right in and fish.
Oh yeah, you can go halfway through before it gets too deep.
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
So I'm from the east side of the state, Lapeer area. Where are you from?
Well, so we were kind of neighbors. I was from the east side of Flint, Kearsley, and I know that back a long time ago we used to play against Lapeer, and then at a certain point in history, I know Lapeer grew and became East and West.
Yes.
But I can remember when it was just...
I went to East.
Just Lapeer. Okay. So, yeah, we were in neighboring communities. I pheasant hunted a lot in Lapeer County.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of state game area.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful area. So you and I kind of did the same thing. We kind of got out of the city, got out of the urban areas, and we ended up where we want to be in an area we love.
Where'd you go to school?
Flint Kearsley.
Well,
yep.
University.
Oh, I went to Michigan State University for my teaching degree, and then I finished my master's degree at Ferris State in criminal justice administration. So how about you?
I went to U of M Flint, and then I dropped out after 3 years. I've been writing code since I was 12, had a first computer at 6, and I knew way more than I was being taught at school, and it was kind of a waste. So I dropped out after 3 years, and I'm definitely paying for that. But
has that hurt you in the job market, not having the paper?
No, not at all.
That's what I figured. You and I have a lot of similarities and a lot of contrasts. If on a scale of 1 to 10, technology-wise, if a rock is 0, I'm somewhere between a rock and a 1. And obviously, you're at the other end of the spectrum. So I think we'll have fun with that.
Yeah. Now, I've been doing software for 15 years. I did medical robot programming back in high school in 10th grade. I started out doing websites at 12 for people. So I've been doing this for a long time.
Good. And don't forget, you're going to help me with my website, mister.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe there might even be a little gift certificate.
How much does it pay?
It pays whatever I need to pay to get it done right.
Why are we doing this?
You know, that's the question. We're brand new to this. Have you ever done radio before?
No.
I haven't either. I used to do an Ask the DNR TV show on public television, so I'm very familiar with being in front of a camera or on radio, but I've never officially done this. Why are you doing this? What's in your head?
Well, the whole last 6 months, I've met more people.
Chris, what has gone on in the last 6 months? Tell us.
Well, if you don't know, then you must be living under a rock, but it's quite clear that everything with the Goshen project and everything going on in the township and the county has definitely caused a buzz around town. And That's kind of where I've met more people in the last 6 months, 7 months than I have in the 7 years I've been here.
It's caused the Big Rapids buzz.
It has, definitely.
When I first met you, I too was involved in
When
that effort.
did we meet? I don't remember.
Well, it would have been at one of the meetings, but I was so impressed that someone your age, because you're a lot younger than me, is willing to get involved with community affairs. Because so often younger people are, they're having a family, they're building a career, or they tend to be indifferent or apathetic because of some of the political climates that we've dealt with lately.
Well, the whole reason I got involved is because it goes against every reason why I moved up here. I was told by my realtor that this area, because I had the job in Grand Rapids, and I told him, what does most people do? And he said, if you're either a student, you're retired, you work at Ferris, or you work at one of the places around here, or you drive to Grand Rapids. That's what everyone does. And so he said, you'll just fit right in. And that's how it was 7 years ago. And the place was never going to change, he said. And well, time has shown that not to be true.
Yes. Yeah. We all hope, or many of us hope, that things don't change. Things, inevitably change, but the change needs to be good change.
Correct.
And, I think
natural
change that's right for our community.
Organic change, not stimulated.
Absolutely. And I think, for some of the same reasons, that's why I'm here. This has inspired me. Again, I've been here a little longer than you, but I met so many good people, and it was so inspiring to see what can happen at the grassroots level when people get involved. Because
it's amazing.
We're
it's
all
beautiful.
very cynical anymore, and I was becoming politically very cynical. And then you see what can happen when people work together. And, there were a lot of
all
us
different talents and skills.
Absolutely. Different backgrounds.
This is textbook grassroots efforts that we observe.
This is what I call we the people stuff.
It will be recorded in textbooks, yep. and there, I guarantee you there will be TV shows made in the future, or a movie made on what happened here,
Chris,
in the future.
Who do you think will play me?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, let's work on that. All right.
Yeah, we're gonna have to think about that. Oh, I got some ideas for some people in this town.
Yeah. But I absolutely love this community. I love the natural resources. I love the nature of the small town. And we're not in Hicksville. We have enough to do around here, stores and restaurants, but mostly we have good friends and good people. And,
absolutely.
And beautiful natural resources. And
there's tons of jobs opening still. There's
absolutely
tons of jobs available right now.
There are. There are things to do in this community. There are options, for younger people, for middle-aged and older people. It's just a great community, and it's interesting because my perspective is probably a little different than yours. This is the last shot for my wife and I. We don't have the ability at our age and financially to just pick up and do it over again in another community we decide we like because we don't like something here. We bought a beautiful farm, built a beautiful little log home. We absolutely love it. This is our final resting place, and we really don't have the interest, but really the ability to pick up and go.
I can get up and go at any time, but I'm not going to. I mean, first of all, I can't get what I got here down there in Grand Rapids for anywhere near the price.
Very true.
For an acre of land on the river down in Grand Rapids, you're talking almost $1 million.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how much software engineers make, but if it's
not as much as you think.
If it's not, I guarantee it's more than a cop.
Well, maybe. It's probably.
I can guess that it might be more than a police officer makes. But do you do anything else in the outdoors? Do you hunt or trap or anything
I've always
else?
wanted to hunt, but I before moving up here, I would come up to this area and fly fish.
Yeah.
I fly fish the Muskegon, fly fish the Pere Marquette, the Little Manistee. I spent so many weekends from 4th of July all the way through to the last weekend of the year in the cold, fishing that Little Manistee River for the steelhead and the salmon, and it was all catch and release. I never really wanted to keep it and eat it. I had no real purpose for that, but yeah, I was every weekend. I would leave after class or after work. I would drive up 75, over on 10, over to Little Manistee. I'd sleep in my car in a tent all weekend.
That's what crazy fly fishermen do. I used to be one.
Nice.
I fly fish.
Did you tie your own flies?
There's something I did not, but there's something. And we were just, a buddy and I were just learning and just fishing for little stuff. We weren't hitting steelhead or salmon or anything. We were over on the North Branch of the Ausable, and we were
I've never
fishing
been over there.
the hatches, and it was amazing. You'd drive all that way, spend all that money, wade in that river till almost dark, and catch a 8 or 10 inch trout. And it was just like you won lottery. It's like you figured it out.
When you get a fish on that fly rod,
it's pretty.
It's
pretty
crazy.
cool. If you haven't fly fished, it's hard to understand.
Yes.
It is different than traditional fishing. So.
Yeah, especially with just a bobber.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you and I had talked a little bit about my career, and what you had asked me, what got me into that career, and we grew up, east side of Flint, so we weren't in the city, we were in the county. And
did you fish the Flint River?
Oh gosh, yes. My brothers and I used to fish the Flint River and the Kearsley Creek, a tributary there,
yeah.
and we used to catch carp, and we used to sell them, which you can't do. We didn't know that as kids. My brother, when we were little kids, caught a 27.5-inch smallmouth bass.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Put it in a 5-gallon bucket, and the tail was sticking out 8-10 inches. Ran it a mile home to show my dad, and he thought it was great. And he said, "What are you going to do with it?" I don't know. He said, "Go let it go." And we ran it all the way back and let it go. But a 27.5-inch smallmouth.
Wow.
I don't know what the state record is right now. But yeah.
What about the Holloway Dam?
Oh, yeah. We fished Holloway. But we fished mostly the Flint River and the Kearsley Creek because we could either walk or bicycle to it. And back then you could walk and bicycle safely. But there is one, I was the youngest of 3 brothers, and there's a story that kind of outlines some of my obsessions and my drive to protect the natural resources as a game warden. And I was a little guy. My parents built a place up on Lake Huron, up north of Oscoda in Greenbush. Beautiful, just fantastic. We spent most of our summers up there. And I was the youngest of 3 boys, and I'm going to guess at this time I was maybe 7. And I do know that I was obsessed with critters, snakes and bugs and turtles and salamanders and anything that crawled. It drove my mom crazy, a poor lady, and I was just obsessed with it. And I knew enough. I was a sneaky little guy too. If I had something I wasn't a bad kid, but if I had something in my head, I was sneaky. And I knew across US 23. So we're on the lakeside, US 23, across with huge cedar swamps. And one day, Mom, Dad was probably working on the place. Mom was out with us kids. We're on the beach swimming, doing things. And I snuck away in nothing but my swim trunks. Again, probably 7 years old. And I made it across US 23 without getting hit. Went into the swamp. I had a little plastic bucket that my little sisters had for making sandcastles. And I started ripping up logs and finding salamanders. I found Jefferson salamanders. I found tiger salamanders. I found spotted salamanders. Anything you could imagine to find in a cedar swamp in northern Michigan, I found. It was unbelievable. I was just, if they had a lottery back there and I just won $500 million, I wouldn't have been happier than what I found. So, and I lost all track of time. Well, by this time, I think, my mom had 5 kids. I was a middle son. So, I think maybe she thought, losing one be easy to have another one than to lose this one. If I lose him, I lose him. I don't know. With 5 kids, I had a wonderful mother, but, and anyhow, I realized, something's not right. I've been gone a while. So I make my way back, and I come up to the cottage as she's coming up the driveway, and she looks at me, and her eyes get big as coffee cups. And she, oh my goodness, and she's crying, and I'm like, Mom, I'm okay, And
what time of night was this?
No, this is middle of the day.
Oh, okay.
Hot summer day. Okay. Well, she takes me in the house and she starts brushing me, and I look, and I'm covered in blood. And I was out in the swamp with Alcona County Boone and Crockett mosquitoes. I was so stupid as a kid. I mean, you talk about room temperature IQ would have been a gift for me. That'd have been really, really overshooting things. And I was so obsessed with what I was doing that I had no idea. So my mom got me in a bathtub. They used to make stuff called witch hazel. For our listeners, you probably, maybe they still make it. I'm sure some of our listeners are nodding their heads right now. She ran some bath water, put a whole thing of witch hazel in there and started cleaning me. Well, my 2 older brothers came in by then, and, the looks they used to give me, just stand there, shake their head, big eyes, shaking their head like, how does this little guy live? How is he alive every day? And then they started counting. I had 81 mosquito bites.
Any ticks?
80. Nope. There weren't ticks back then, Chris. I don't.
What?
Never saw a tick in Michigan till 10 years ago.
Really?
And no ticks, but 81 mosquito bites. And I'm telling you, those mosquitoes up there were aggressive.
I went up to the Porcupine Mountains back, 5-6 years ago. And those mosquitoes up there, those are like pterodactyls. Those are evolved,
they're
okay?
angry.
They're not your average mosquitoes.
They are angry. What we'll find out as the show goes on in weeks and we start talking, really getting into some of the undercover stuff I did. That obsession that I had, that single-minded obsession is what made me pretty good at what I did. It wasn't intelligence. It still isn't. But to make some of the cases I made.
What you lack, I guess I make up for.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Any stories that kind of from your childhood that kind of shaped you? Putting you on the spot here, Chris.
Having a computer at 6 years old, my mother wanted. My father was a garbage truck driver. My mother stayed at home. Nobody really in my family was into technology, but my mother really wanted me to learn and understand the computer. So I remember sitting on my mother's lap back in the days of dial-up in the 90s, sitting there and her showing me the computer. And at 6, I had my own, and I was modifying video games and all that stuff way back then. And that's
so you were born with an aptitude.
Oh yeah, I guess I were molded to it, I guess. But I've always been into technology.
What year were you born?
1994.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay.
29. I turned 30 in January.
I've got blue jeans older than you. Matter of fact, I might have them on. It's a good thing this isn't television. Wow. But I think that's what's
when
really.
When were you born?
I was born. Oh, did the listeners have trouble hearing that? I was born in 1958.
Oh.
And it was an amazing time to grow up. We talk about my wonderful parents, the most caring, loving, responsible parents you can imagine. But we'd take off, my brothers and I, for the whole day.
Until sometimes the street lights come on.
8 or 10 miles away to fish, to do what we're doing. And my parents, community people looked after each other. They protected children. We didn't have the predators.
That's not what we had
around. It was a lot different. And, it was a time of interesting contrast. And some of the listeners will get this because it was a wonderful, idyllic time to grow up in contrast
when did that all change?
With the Vietnam War. Boy, it's insidious. It doesn't just change. It isn't a light switch.
Was it the 80s or 90s?
Changes. Oh, I would say
it can't be the 80s.
Probably more than 90s and into the 2000s. And to be honest with you, technology caused some of the change, and you probably understand that. Social media and technology. But it was an amazing time to grow up. We had this perfect world, and then we had the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And I remember after the Detroit riots, my dad loaded us up in the car and we drove through there in Detroit, not the Vietnam, the Detroit riots, and we drove through and it looked just like what we were seeing in Vietnam on the news every night. Burning, ruined buildings, smoldering. I mean, it was just amazing. So we were in that time where it was such a wonderful time to grow up, but we also had, the Vietnam War and protests and some of the racial issues. So there was a
you grew
yin
up
and a
in
yang
Flint,
there.
though.
And East Side.
So my parents grew up in Roseville and East Detroit.
Oh,
I
yeah.
went to East Detroit High School.
Yep. Yeah.
Definitely. My dad told me stories about that happening back then.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great time to grow up. It's tough right now. I have 3 grandkids, so it's a lot different.
So, Bruce, how did you go from kicking doors down on the drug team to being a chief at Ferris?
Those are about 2 ends of the spectrum right there.
Yeah.
I know that in my 7 years there, we did some math and we figured I was in on executing over 300 search warrants. And I went there.
How many years were you there?
7 years.
7 years.
I ended up the assistant team leader there to Ferris, to the kinder, gentler atmosphere at a university and university policing, and that was a big transition, a big change of pace. But 5-6 months into the job, we had a shooting. One of the students was shot just across the street from campus.
On campus, or
well, just across the street, and 3 or 4 in the morning, and the shooter was an unknown.
We just had one a few months ago, didn't we?
No, well, there was, actually someone did get a ricochet, I think, on something, but this was an intentional shooting. It wasn't someone just firing a gun off. They, pointed a gun and shot at the guy. And,
oh my God.
And so what was nice is many, many years of other law enforcement, man, I went, was able to go right to work. And I know within less than 24 hours, we had a completely unknown shooter, unknown to everyone, in custody. He was actually a high-level gang member from Detroit, and he ended up hiding and holding up in an apartment on campus. And we had him in custody. So I got tested under fire, and I got lucky, but boy, it sure made me look good. But navigating, law enforcement on a campus is the old saying, like a man handling a dove: you squeeze too tight, you smother it; you hold too loose, it flies away. And everyone on campus wants to be safe. They want to be kept safe, but heavy-handed law enforcement, aggressive law enforcement, usually doesn't really go over real well on a campus. So keeping people safe, making them feel safe, and not being too aggressive or heavy-handed was really that balance.
How long did you do that for?
I was almost 8 years.
Wow.
Yep, came in 13 and retired. This will be 3 years this month.
Right before the pandemic?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, lucky me. Yes.
Like how long before the pandemic?
Well, it had just started.
Oh.
And I retired in November, and things were just starting to go.
How was the pandemic for you?
For me, well, it wasn't bad because I left that position. It would have been much more challenging. I mean, it started. I had to deal with it. And interestingly enough, I used to have to do a tabletop exercise every year for all the many administrators on campus. And we did one several years prior to that on a pandemic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's an emergency preparedness exercise. So,
wow.
So we did that. But I was able. The pandemic for me was, not a real big thing because I retired just as it was really cranking up. So.
Yeah, I worked from home for almost 2 years.
and has that has probably remained to a certain extent, right?
Somewhat. I mean, before the pandemic, we were not allowed to work from home. After the pandemic, now it's more lenient. A certain number of days I work from home. It's much better now that I have faster internet. Tri-County Electric came through with their aerial fiber, and so now I have 21st century internet. When I moved here, I had slower than dial-up speeds. It was ridiculous.
For your job, that's a must.
Oh, yes. I was on satellite because I got fed up with the satellite that the wireless solution that they had when I moved here. I bought the house and not thinking about, I figured it's 2016. You'd have modern internet. I don't know why and what the problem was. I quickly figured that out, and that kind of is the root cause of everything of what happened this year, of why I got involved, really, kind of. Yeah. But yeah, then in 2020 I got Viasat satellite, and that was
it works.
It was okay. It got the job done, but there was a 2-second delay, and try to have a business meeting with a 2-second delay.
Yeah.
And it's 2 seconds for them to hear my voice and 2 seconds for them for me to hear their response
Yes.
to it. So that's 4 seconds delay.
Yeah.
And they've already moved on to the subject matter, and you're still hearing what they said 4 seconds ago.
Yeah, right on. Yeah.
So
yeah.
what kind of internet do you have?
We may have ended it today. I don't know. Can I say business on the air? Well,
I already did by
I have what's
accident.
called AT&T FirstNet, and it's actually an internet for police officers and emergency first responders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I am still deputized in 2 counties.
Oh, really?
So I'm still technically
Which counties?
a police officer, Clare County and Isabella County.
Oh.
And I was a fill-in for a police position at Mid-Michigan Community College. They have daytime deputies that are there. Now, I haven't done it here for a while because gas prices got so high it didn't make sense for what I was making to drive 2 hours a day to go do that.
What do you think about the gas prices?
Oh, it's crazy. It's it's like Novocaine. When you get the shot, you know you're getting a shot. But then
What was the gas prices when you were growing up? When you first got your first car?
I remember we called them gas wars. They call it gas wars because the stations would get in wars. I can remember 19.9, 21.9. Those are pennies. Yeah, 19.9, 21.9
Cents.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, geez.
yeah.
I've
yeah.
never seen that. The
Yeah.
closest I've gotten is with the Westco rewards and getting down to 7 cents per gallon. But that was after a lot of rewards.
A lot of rewards, yeah. No, this was no promotions. These were, the gas wars would go on. This station would go to 22.9. This one would go to 21.9. And I do remember 19.9. And back then we drove muscle cars. We drove cars that drank a lot of gas.
What kind of muscle car did you have?
I had a 70 old Cutlass W31. It was their real high performance 350. And it was a cool car. I had several Oldsmobiles, but it was a great car. I was kind of a motorhead.
My dad was supposed to be my first car, but then 2008 happened. But we had a 1971 Mach 1 Ford Mustang.
Oh,
yellow,
great car.
just like that movie. I forgot what movie it was, but it got hit by a train in the movie at the end.
Oh,
We sold it to the director of that show, but we needed the money because of 2008.
71 was pre-smog. In 1973 is when all the federal restrictions came on for pollution control, smog control, we call it, and the horsepower just fell down to the basement. But in 71,
What was your first car?
The first car was an old Cutlass. It wasn't a hot rod. It was just a old Cutlass, and I'll never forget it because my then girlfriend, who is now my beloved wife, Vicky, in one of our early dates, told me that the turn signal was annoying. And she was the sweetest, nicest. She still is. She's the sweetest, nicest woman I've ever been around. And I couldn't believe it because it was so unlike her that she told me that the turn signal bothered her. But I ignored that and I didn't get mad at her. So what happened? What did COVID do to you? What work-wise, obviously some working at home, but
in January of 2020, I was supposed to go to California, and the week before going to California for a business trip, we had a event, a corporate event at a restaurant, and one of the it was on a Wednesday, and one of the higher ups of the company came back and was kind of sick. And he came to the event. He just got off the plane the day before. It was kind of like a buffet style. And this was in January when we really didn't know what was going on, and we really didn't hear about anything. And the guy came back, and he was sick, and he went to the event. And the next thing we know, well, we were joking around with him. He's like, "Oh, where you came from?" He came from Wuhan, China. It was just on a trip, and came back. And we had that dinner, and that Friday. 2 days later, I went into work, and I was fine in the morning. And around noon, I drove back from Grand Rapids all the way here with the windows down in January. I felt like I got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
It just hit me. And I went to the urgent care, and they said, we don't know what you got. It's just a flu. You just got the flu. There was no COVID test. There wasn't any of that stuff. And I went home, and I just went about my day. But I was sick for a month. I lost my voice for a month. And they just kind of blamed it on the flu. But I still had energy. I wasn't. The first 2 days was bad, but I went out and did karaoke that Saturday.
Karaoke. Oh, Chris, I'm finding out more and more about you all the time. You're a crooner. What are the chances of you singing some songs during Big Rapids Buzz?
No, none.
Oh, my
0.
goodness.
I haven't done that
What
in
if
a long
we bring
time.
a bottle of bourbon in here and get you loosened up a little bit?
Maybe we'd have to do that.
Wow. Go ahead.
Rum would be better.
Go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't know you're a crooner.
So we, I was supposed to go to San Francisco, and we didn't. And the other guy took my place, and he went on the plane there, and that was that Monday he left, and he got there, and he started getting sick on the plane, but he still did the business event, and when he came back on the flight, he did a transfer on the way back in Atlanta. The first case was announced in San Francisco.
No kidding.
Yes, where he was.
You're kind of like,
okay,
you're close to Typhoid Mary.
And then he landed back here in Grand Rapids, and then the second case or the next couple cases was down in Atlanta.
Yep.
Okay, and so it's kind of weird. And then what I remember is everybody up here got sick right after I got sick.
Yep.
I remember the gas station getting sick, people at the bar getting sick. Maybe it's my fault. I don't know. I hope not.
Chris, did you have sex education in high school?
I did.
Back when we did, you remember they talked about the young lady who contracted something and then, went on a date with this person and got to know this person and et cetera, et cetera. You could be
maybe
the Typhoid Mary of COVID.
I never got COVID though. When I did tests and never got COVID the whole time. I assume in January that was COVID.
Yeah, I've had it a couple times.
But I think we were sick before that. Back in November, my father passed away from a heart attack, but he was sick with some bug the 3 weeks prior to his death.
Really?
And then everyone was sick at the funeral. So I have no idea. But anyway, that pandemic, we got to work from home. It was awesome.
Yeah, and that has been, boy, there's a show in itself, the good and bad of that, because as a former educator, I've taught at the university level, but I was educated, for middle school and elementary school and some high school. And, the thought of remote learning for kids drives me crazy. And as a fundamentalist educator, it's terrible. And I understand, to a certain extent. I mean, we could get into the COVID debate. I understand to a certain extent. A lot of it I don't understand and agree with. I wonder sometimes when we try to manipulate Mother Nature, I wonder sometimes if we don't prolong things. An example right now is chronic wasting disease in deer, and the state, with good intentions, outlawed baiting so that you don't have nose-to-nose contact. But that is a protein that lives in the soil. Mother Nature put it there. Mother Nature intended for it to run through a bovine population. And what happens is those animals with a natural immunity or with a good enough constitution to fight it reproduce and produce other offspring that have those traits. So I just wonder sometimes when we try to manipulate these things.
Oh, for sure.
With the crazy mask requirements and shutting down schools and shutting down works and everything, are we actually potentially prolonging it?
Well, anytime you try to prevent something, you're either delaying it or making something worse. The same thing goes back to fishing. Back a long time ago, it was like in the 60s, there was an alewife bloom, and it hurt the Michigan recreation on the lakes. All these alewives would bloom on the beaches, and so what they do, they had a solution. Planted salmon, exactly. And so then the salmon, and that created a whole industry up in Manistee, and all these people came along, and
the alewives were saltwater fish. They came in through the St. Lawrence Seaway, came to our fresh waters, and didn't live long.
Yep.
And our cottage up on Lake Huron, it was unbelievable. They'd come in, and if you walked on the beach, you'd slip and slide in dead alewives.
Yes.
And then, as you said, the state introduced salmon. The salmon gorged themselves on
they did.
alewives. So,
but the whole industry was built around that. And then the alewife population was solved by the salmon eating them. And it took a little while. But that population dropped down, and then it hurt the industry. If you go back up to Manistee during salmon season, it's not like it used to be. There used to be people shoulder to shoulder, like so close. Now they're there, but it's nothing like it used to be. Right. And all those businesses, those people that opened up bait and tackle shops, they're closed down, or the cabins that people bought land and built cabins for that recreation is just, you go up to Brethren, it's not the same as it used
Absolutely.
to. And I remember back in 2013, we had that really bad winter, and it just has not recovered. That salmon population has not recovered since then. It's never been the same.
Yep. Well, if you would like to sponsor our program, get a hold of Jen Theodore at 231-796-1103. We're looking for sponsors, and the neat thing about being a sponsor is Chris and I are going to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about what you do, your business, how long you've been here, what you have to offer, why Big Rapids.
Why?
And so it's really a great opportunity for you to come in and tell the community about what you have to offer.
But we also want to meet our neighbors. We want to learn more about the community, as I've learned a lot about the community in the last 6 months, more than the last 7 years.
Right on.
What about you?
As far as
learning more about your community.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Chris,
have you met more people in the last 6 months, 7 months, than you have the entire time you lived
I don't
here?
know about that, because I've been a public official, I've been a police chief, so I was pretty connected. But I can tell you, in the last 6 months, I've met a bunch of new people. I met you, and the odds are, had we not both been involved in preserving this county in our fight, against Goshen, you and I would never meet. You and I don't run the same circles, and so we probably never would have met.
And we'll leave you with this: everything happens for a reason.
There you go.